Good morning, broadcasters. 360 Seconds news and commentary for broadcast professionals is on the air. I'm Maria Kholodova from TKT. Let's discuss the latest technological news with just one of our respected experts today, Philip Grossman. Don't forget to give the program a like. So, Pixellot's system, which incorporates automated video and analytics to capture every moment of the game, will provide teams with faster and more in-depth analytics. By incorporating Playmaker's technology, Pixellot's platform will allow the tracking of every aspect of a player's performance, from passing and kicking to speed and distance traveled, all in one video platform. So, Philip, tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, one of the things I find interesting is there's two takes on how these types of systems work. One is a visual with visual cameras tracking the individual players, and the other one, which has been around a little bit longer, is actually having sensors on the individual players. And there are several companies that do that. And this, I think, is one of the first where they're combining the two together. So it's very interesting from from obviously a performance perspective on the players being able to identify how well a player is doing and giving feedback. What I think is going to be kind of interesting is how this technology then can be incorporated into the broadcast, so that you'll have stats about, especially in a sport like football, where you know how many plays and how far the person's run because it's a stops. Soccer is one of those things that once the game starts until you hit halftime or the end of the game, there really isn't much stopping. And so this will provide that data to help commentators provide additional information about the player. He's running a little bit slower because he's already run 12 miles in today's game, and he usually averages 6 miles a game or something like that. So I think it's an interesting technology, and it will be just as interesting to see how live television sports exploits it.
Great. Now moving on to Kinefinity, who have introduced the second iteration of their MAVO and MAVO LF cinema cameras. They inherit many of the features of the high-end siblings, starting from the body design and software platform, but come at a more affordable price. The new Kinefinity MAVO Mark II comes in two versions, S35 and large format. So, Philip, what's special about these?
Well, I think these are first. They were one of the first to come in at a I guess you'd consider a prosumer price point for a cinema camera. Of course, the definition of cinema camera is sort of amorphous a little bit. But they really did make a splash by coming in sort of that sub 6,000, sub 8,000 for a Super 35 and full format in that 6K, 8K range. They adopt a similar box type style that you see in the Red cameras and the RE cameras, and even Sony has adopted it to some extent. So this is sort of an evolution for them, it seems. The sensors are a little bit better. They're dual ISO, meaning that they have a low-end ISO and a high-end ISO for low light conditions, which is interesting that they're able to do that. They come in, they're roughly a 6K plus sensor when you look at the total megapixels that they're capable of shooting. And then there's a full frame version of it, which is interesting. They were at one point shooting ProRes RAW. I don't know if they're still doing that. They are doing ProRes. So it really is an interesting evolution in that camera design, enabling sort of that prosumer introductory professional to get into a cinema camera, or to some extent large organizations that spend tens of thousands of dollars on cameras, having a for lack of a better term, a throwaway camera that is, can be stuck in a situation where if it gets destroyed, you're not as concerned. So it's interesting.
All right, now going back to sports, NBC Sports Regional Networks have selected the Ross Video Expression Real-Time Motion Graphics System and Piero Sports Graphics Analysis Platform to enhance production. With Expression, the RSNs can use one tool to manage all on-screen and studio wall graphics. So, Philip, how do you think this will help boost workflow, or again, help kind of boost that sports on screen that audiences are seeing?
Well, one thing that's interesting is Ross has been one of those players that you've seen a lot in the college area and in some areas of professional sports. A very cost-effective solution, and I believe they've stepped up their game. I mean, the quality of the product, the capabilities of their products have really increased over the last couple of years, and by the adoption within an RSN, which I've always believed RSNs were the really where sports is going to go, because all sports is local. I mean, it's your local team. So by adopting a standard platform across all of the RSNs, it gives you the ability to obviously share data, whether it be templates or structure. You get somewhat of a consistency. I mean, that's a big thing that people like when they're watching television, especially in the sports, that there's a consistency to the presentation, that the data they're going to get, they know where the sports score is on the screen. They know, where the down symbols are on the screen. It makes it easier for them to watch over time. And Ross has really sort of stepped up the game in the technologies that they're providing to that level of sports. And I just see them, going further and further up the chain.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have today. Many thanks to our one expert today, Philip. And don't forget to comment on the news that we've discussed. See you next Monday at the same time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.